I don't know 50. 50 don't know me. To drive by us, we don't know who he is, so we looking at the car like, who cuz? He pull off. Like today, hey, cuz did that. Straight up, I got respect for cuz for that. Because we was far from the shoot, we like on the corner.
We look like
cuz. Yeah, like,
what's up, cuz?
He like, what's up? 50 ain't back down. 50 was banging out, and I know 50 was whooping him. 50's a big boxing. So I know he was tearing some. And these was like 8'11" of these. You know what I mean?
Rick, bro, I'm gonna f your life up. For fun. This a few times. This is not new. I do this all the time.
In hip-hop, checking in is serious business. But for someone like 50 Cent, that rule never applied. The man's name alone rings out loud in every corner of the streets, and it's clear the LA Crips must have missed that memo. Before the fame, before the hit records, 50 wasn't just another face in the crowd. Back when he was known as Boo Boo, he was already calling shots. He had his own crew, and they didn't just follow him. They respected him like a true boss. People could feel that energy every time he stepped out. 50 was built different. That hunger, that grind, that fire to turn nothing into something. It burned in him nonstop. He wasn't just running the streets. He was strategizing like a chess master, always 10 moves ahead of everyone around him. But make no mistake, the streets aren't fair, and every single day was a test filled with danger, split-second decisions, and real consequences. Some choices made him, some nearly broke him, but every one of them shaped the man he became. What's wild is, even with all that street respect, 50 was never officially part of the Bloods, the Crips, or any set. He grew up around it, sure, but he always moved by his own code. Independent, fearless, untouchable. That's exactly where the whole checking in debate kicks off. A street custom that's got rappers, fans, and OGs arguing non-stop. Is it about showing respect, or is it just another form of pressure? Because when a rapper or celeb lands in a city with heavy gang ties, they're expected to tap in with the local power players for protection. In return for that so-called protection, artists might have to pay up, do a few favors, or even put someone from the block on.
Man, 50 do more for you than any artist, than anybody does for their artists. More than Jay-Z. Young Guns was right there. Young Guns was right next to me. He was like, Jay-Z don't do what 50 do for you.
Some people say it's just a smart way to keep things peaceful. Others call it what it really is, a street-level shakedown. A lot of rappers play along thinking it's just another part of the industry hustle, but not 50 Cent. He doesn't bend, he doesn't bow, and there are plenty of reasons why. Let's take it back to Queens, New York, way before the fame, before the millions, before the legend of 50 Cent was born. Back then, Curtis Jackson's life was pure survival. No silver spoons, no fancy homes, no safety net waiting if things went left. Every single day was a grind through poverty, chaos, and a neighborhood drowned in drugs and violence. That was his world. And by the time he was just 8 years old, he had already seen more heartbreak than most people ever will. Losing his mother that young didn't just hurt, it changed everything. The pain ran deep, and it never really left him. He once told Spin magazine, "After my mom passed, everything that went wrong because she wasn't there."
You better check in. Imagine, Sam Gangster, Crip, straight up. Crip, straight up. Crip.
Even something small, like wanting to go to the park and it's starting to rain, felt like the world's way of reminding him she was gone. To cope, Curtis found a kind of peace in his grandparents' basement. He told Oprah Winfrey that locking himself away became his escape, his way of numbing the hurt. He didn't know how to talk about what he was feeling, so he shut the world out and stayed in his own head. And as if losing his mom wasn't already too much to bear, Curtis never even knew his father. The man was like a ghost, gone before Curtis ever had the chance to ask who he was. And the wild part? 50 never cared to find out. To this very day, he's never gone looking, never asked questions, never wanted that connection at all. With that kind of pain weighing heavy on his back, it didn't take long before Curtis started running with people who lived by their own rules. By the time he was just 12, he had already seen what really brought money to the block.
50 ain't back down. 50 was banging out, and I know 50 was whooping him. Because 50 is a big boxing. So I know he was tearing some. And these was like 8'11" of these. You know what I mean?
Crack cocaine. And in his eyes, it wasn't even a choice. It was the only way to survive. He once said, "It don't seem like one of the options. It seems like the only option." That statement alone shows just how real his struggle was. But that life always comes with a price. It didn't take long before the streets and the law both came knocking. At just 19 years old, Curtis got hit with 2 arrests in only 3 weeks. First for selling coke to an undercover cop, then again when police caught him with a gun on him. Getting locked up sent a loud message. If he didn't change direction fast, he wasn't going to make it out alive. So Boo Boo made a move that shocked everyone. He switched lanes completely. He wasn't just trying to run from the streets anymore. He wanted to own his future. He reinvented himself with a name that would soon echo worldwide. 50 Cent, a name that stood for change, hustle, and straight-up survival. He rounded up his crew, the ones he trusted most, and formed G-Unit, a team built on loyalty and grind. Together, they hustled their way from the block to the boardroom until that long-awaited record deal finally hit. From that moment on, 50 Cent wasn't just another street hustler. He was on his way to owning hip-hop.
Either your fear consumes you or you become a bit insensitive. So just after...
Which one was it for you?
There was a point that I was afraid.
But let's get one thing straight. Success didn't mean the drama was over. In fact, it only turned the heat up higher. There were beefs, betrayals, and straight-up chaos. G-Unit went through wild ups and downs. Tony Yayo got locked up, some members drifted away, and 50 found himself in the middle of conflicts that could have ended his career. Or worse, one of the biggest moments that shook the game, his legendary feud with Ja Rule. It all kicked off when one of 50's boys, Troy, allegedly robbed Ja.
I have no interest in it. You know, the mistakes that I made early on, Larry, he could have been there to help me not make those mistakes.
Damn right.
After that, things exploded. 50 actually tried to keep it cool when they crossed paths at a club, but Ja wasn't buying it. He swore 50 had a hand in the setup. Years later, Ja finally admitted the robbery went down, but he still denied 50 was involved. By then, though, the damage was done, and that's where the war really began. Then came another twist. Enter Kenneth Supreme McGriff, a former drug kingpin turned music mogul who had serious pull in the streets and the industry. Supreme was tight with Ja Rule and Murder Inc., and he wasn't some behind-the-scenes figure either. He was the man making sure the label's artists were protected and respected. So when Supreme stepped in and told 50 to fall back from Ja, 50 nodded out of pure respect. Supreme was someone he used to look up to, a real street legend in his eyes. But here's the thing, 50 being 50, he couldn't just let it slide. He still came for Ja on wax, dropping fire on his track Your Life's on the Line. He even called Ja out, saying he was a studio gangster who needed Supreme's help to get his chain back. That little edit didn't calm anything down, not even close. The beef was officially alive, loud, and ready to explode. Then came the night that sent the entire hip-hop world into chaos. Ja Rule and 50 Cent were both booked to perform at the same club, and you already know things were about to pop off. The tension in the room was heavy, and before long, a full-on fight broke out. When the dust settled, 50 was standing there holding Ja Rule's chain in his hand, a straight-up power move that had everyone talking. And he didn't stop there. 50 went and flashed that very same chain in his Your Life's on the Line music video, Total Disrespect. Ja was humiliated and furious, running straight to Supreme to get his chain back. But instead of returning it, Supreme reportedly traded it for a watch. That move alone showed just how tired Supreme was getting of cleaning up Ja's messes. By this point, the tension was off the charts. Supreme was fed up with how 50 kept wrecking Ja's image, and 50 wasn't backing down for anybody. Things got even worse when 50 started linking up with street figures like E-Moneybags, Big Nose Troy, and Green-Eyed Born, all guys who had serious issues with Supreme. It was like 50 was poking the bear on purpose.
He was one of the biggest, youngest drug dealers at that time. From 94, 95, it's one of the biggest, youngest drug dealers. At that time, he was like 19.
Then 50 dropped Ghetto Quran, a track that spilled way too much about Supreme's past life in the streets. The song named names and hinted at real street business, and Supreme did not like that one bit. Right around that same time, someone made an attempt on Supreme's life at a gas station, and he immediately suspected 50 had something to do with it. That was it, the final straw. Supreme decided 50 had crossed the line and had to be dealt with. So he allegedly put a hit out on him and brought in none other than Daryl Homo Baum, a feared street enforcer and former bodyguard for Mike Tyson, to handle the job. Now, if you're wondering who Daryl Homo Baum really was, let's rewind for a second. After Mike Tyson destroyed Lou Savarese in the first round of their fight, he jumped into one of his classic wild post-fight interviews, but this time he opened it by dedicating the win to his fallen friend Daryl Homo Baum. See, Homo wasn't just some random dude hanging around Tyson's circle.
You know what I'm saying? But it had nothing to do with him. Like, I didn't even know you know this dude.
He was a known figure from Brooklyn's tough Lafayette Gardens projects. Even though he stood only about 5'7" and walked with a limp, his reputation was solid. People didn't call him Homo because of anything soft. The nickname came from his teenage days when he'd knock people out cold with a single punch, then rob them right after. That kind of street rep made his name echo across Brooklyn. So how did a street enforcer like him end up as Iron Mike's personal bodyguard? It all started way back when they were both young and wild. They actually met in juvenile detention. From there, their paths went in completely different directions. Tyson rose to become the heavyweight champion of the world, while Homo spent most of the 90s locked up on robbery charges. When he finally got out, on New Year's Eve, 1999, Tyson decided to look out for his old friend. He gave him a fresh start with money, a Rolex, a car, and even a steady gig as his personal bodyguard. It was supposed to be a new beginning, a chance to leave the streets behind for good. But word around Brooklyn was that Homo wasn't the type to live off anyone's generosity, not even Tyson's. He wanted to earn his own respect and stack his own bread. So not long after his release, he reconnected with the Peanut Crew and started rolling heavy with Kenneth Supreme McGriff, the same Supreme who had ties to Ja Rule and Murder Inc. By that time, Homo was 34 years old, a veteran in a city full of young, reckless hustlers trying to make a name for themselves. The streets had changed, but Homo still had that same old energy, the kind that made people either fear you or follow you. Still, Daryl Homo Baum wasn't the kind of man to fade into the background, not at all. Once he hit the streets again, he made his presence felt immediately. He started pressing local dealers, demanding they work under him, and people knew right away that Homo was back in charge. For a short time, he was even living large, reportedly staying at Mike Tyson's mansion in Connecticut, the very same house that 50 Cent would end up buying years later. Talk about fate coming full circle? But once 50's beef with Supreme exploded, things got dark. Fast. Supreme made a deadly decision. He wanted 50 gone. A hit was placed, and that's when everything changed forever. On May 24th, 2000, 50 Cent was leaving his grandmother's house. His son was inside, and his grandmother was standing right there in the yard. As 50 got into the backseat of a car, another vehicle pulled up close. Out of nowhere, a shooter walked straight to his window and fired 9 shots from a 9mm. Bullets tore through his hand, arm, hip, both legs, chest, and even his left cheek. If that shot had landed just a few inches higher, it would have been over right there. But somehow, 50 survived. 3 brutal weeks in the hospital, multiple surgeries, and a long road to recovery. And against every odd, he made it out. That moment turned him into a legend. Not just in hip-hop, but in life itself. His survival became one of the wildest comeback stories the culture had ever seen.
Fear Prince and respected Prince. Boy, you slow, because I'm going to break it down illa. Supreme was the businessman and Prince was the...
3 years later, 50 dropped Many Men, a haunting track where he hinted that Homo was the shooter. But by then, Homo was already gone. Not because of 50, but because the streets had their own way of closing chapters. Just 3 weeks after the hit on 50, Homo was shot and killed in what turned out to be a completely separate street conflict. At the time, Homo was rolling with the Peanut Crew, run by Ivory Peanut Davis and James Jr. Hamilton. His death traced back to a violent turf war that had kicked off in June 1999, long before the situation with 50 ever went down. Wrong place, wrong time. And another deadly reminder of how quick the streets can turn on anyone. When Myron Wise Hardy was killed in the Lafayette Gardens projects, everything in Brooklyn's street world went up in flames. Myron was part of the Cash Money Brothers, CMB, a crew that controlled the crack game in Bed-Stuy during its wildest years. His brother, Damian World Hardy, was locked up at the time, but when he got word that Myron had been murdered, something in him snapped. He wanted revenge, serious revenge, on anyone tied to the Peanut crew, including Daryl Homo Baum, even though Homo had just recently come home from prison. The suspected shooter in Myron's death was Rummel Davis, the nephew of Ivory Peanut Davis, and that one event turned the entire summer into absolute chaos for the Peanut crew. Damian Hardy wasn't playing games. He sent his most trusted enforcer, Aaron eBay Granton, to start taking out anyone connected to Peanut Circle. The retaliation hit hard and fast. It all began when CMB member Dwayne Thor Myers hunted down Gerard Kojak Mackins, one of Peanut's guys who was rumored to have supplied the gun used in Myron's murder. Kojak was gunned down in cold blood, and that killing sparked a deadly domino effect that spread through Brooklyn like wildfire. Then, just after 2 a.m. on June 10th, 2000, Homo's time ran out. He was lured to the corner of Quincy Street and Marcy Avenue by a woman, a setup he never saw coming. As he sat in his car waiting, eBay walked right up to the driver's side and shot him in the back of the head, ending Homo's brief return to Brooklyn streets. The man who once rolled with Iron Mike Tyson was gone just like that. Tyson, still loyal to his fallen friend, made sure Homo's family didn't have to worry. He personally covered every penny of the funeral cost. But while Tyson mourned, Supreme McGriff's empire was collapsing. The feds were closing in hard. Supreme got hit with federal charges for drug trafficking, racketeering, and multiple murder-for-hire plots. A hitman's testimony, text messages, and even video evidence linked Supreme directly to paying off killers, reportedly dropping $50,000 per job. When the smoke cleared, every asset he had was seized, and by the time his case reached trial, he couldn't even afford a private lawyer. On April 9th, 2007, Supreme McGriff stood in court with a court-appointed attorney, a long way from the power he once held on the streets. Supreme McGriff's story ended behind bars, sentenced to life in prison. But while his empire fell apart, 50 Cent's rise was just getting started. In 2002, a twist of fate changed everything. Eminem got his hands on 50's underground project Guess Who's Back through his lawyer, who happened to be connected to M's manager, Paul Rosenberg. Once Eminem pressed play, he was shocked. He couldn't believe the raw hunger and power in 50's sound. Within days, M flew 50 out to Los Angeles to meet Dr. Dre, and just like that, a new chapter in hip-hop history began. Not long after, 50 landed a $1 million deal with Shady Aftermath, dropped the No Mercy, No Fear mixtape, and released Wanksta, a track that exploded after it landed on the 8 Mile soundtrack. Everything was moving at lightning speed. 50 was becoming unstoppable. Then, in February 2003, he dropped the album that changed the game forever, Get Rich or Die Trying. It blew up instantly, debuting at #1 on the Billboard 200 and selling an insane 872,000 copies in just 4 days. The lead single, In the Club, smashed records, setting a new benchmark for the most radio spins in a single week. 50 wasn't just hot, he was untouchable, sitting right on top of the rap world. But just as one war ended, another was waiting to begin. This time, the tension came from inside the camp, between 50 and the Game. Dr. Dre had signed both artists and decided to bring Game into G-Unit to give the squad a solid West Coast presence. On paper, it looked like a power move. East meets West, unstoppable lineup. But behind the scenes, the energy was already shifting. The problem? The Game's manager was Jimmy Henchman, a man who'd had serious issues with 50 for years. As 50's fame kept skyrocketing, Jimmy reportedly started whispering in Game's ear, pushing him to turn against 50. He even admitted in an interview that his goal was to make the Game surpass 50 in fame by February 2005. That's when things started to get messy, because loyalty in G-Unit was never something to play with. The feud between 50 Cent and the Game didn't stay behind closed doors for long. It exploded right into the public eye. Under Jimmy Henchman's influence, the Game officially declared war on G-Unit, even going as far as to call them out live on stage at Summer Jam. The disrespect was loud and clear, and while 50 kept quiet for a bit, everyone could feel the tension building. Then came October 1st, 2005, the day 50 finally broke his silence. He dropped G-Unit Radio Part 14, Back to Business, and on the track, Emotional, he went straight for the Game's neck, calling him out by name and accusing Jimmy Henchman of being the puppet master behind the chaos. That move sparked a full-blown war in hip-hop. What followed was an all-out back and forth of diss tracks, mixtapes, and sneak disses flying non-stop between both camps through 2005 and 2006. Every track felt like a shot fired, every interview added more fuel to the fire. Fans loved it, but behind the scenes, things were getting darker. By 2007, the situation went from rap beef to real-life danger. In March of that year, Jimmy Henchman's 14-year-old son was walking into his father's office building when Tony Yayo and G-Unit associate Lodi Mack allegedly confronted him. Reports said Yayo slapped the kid while Lodi Mack flashed a gun.
You know, my issue was really more with Jimmy Henchman. And then, you know, as we leaving, I left Apollo. I'm around the corner, my Bentley got shot up, but luckily I was in my bulletproof truck behind the Bentley.
And the entire thing was caught on camera. Cops moved fast. Yayo got arrested, but later, the charges against him were dropped. Lodi Mack, though, stepped up and took full responsibility, saying he was the one who hit the kid. He ended up getting 2 years in prison for the incident. But here's where it turned tragic. Just a few weeks after Lodi Mack got released, he was gunned down in New York. It wasn't random, it was payback. Word spread fast that Jimmy Henchman had ordered the hit in retaliation for what happened to his son. That moment took the beef out of the booth and straight into the streets. And from there, things spiraled completely out of control. Jimmy Henchman went full-on war mode against 50 Cent and Tony Yayo. And his first move felt like something ripped straight out of a Hollywood action flick. He was driving down Manhattan's West Side Highway with a gun in hand, ready to spray up 50's office building without hesitation. But just as he was about to pull the trigger, he spotted a pair of NYPD patrol cars trailing behind him, forcing him to call off the hit at the last second. But quitting? That wasn't in Henchman's nature. If anything, it only made him more determined. He came up with an even wilder plan: to blow up 50 Cent's bulletproof van, believing that an explosion was the only way to take him out for good. The man was thinking like a movie villain, turning revenge into obsession. And he didn't stop there. He wanted Yayo to feel the heat too. Henchman allegedly set up a drive-by targeting Yayo's mother's house, using a silenced pistol so no one would see it coming. The message was loud and clear: nowhere was safe. Then came another hit attempt. Henchman's people found Yayo's Bentley parked on the street and lit it up with bullets. The twist? Yayo wasn't even in that car. He was sitting in a bulletproof van parked right behind it. He walked away without a single scratch. That was the breaking point. 50, and Yayo had officially had enough. At this stage, 50 wasn't about to just sit around and play defense anymore. He decided to flip the script. No more waiting to be hunted. He was taking control of the situation. Once he found out that some of Henchman's guys were laying low in Atlanta, he tracked down one of their addresses and sent a crystal clear message that he wasn't scared of anybody. The warning started spreading quick. Word on the street was that 50's crew wasn't just talking tough, they were proving it. Just to make sure the point hit home, someone even left a dead rat on a doorstep. The old school symbol for snitches and traitors, letting everyone know that things were about to get very real. And of course, 50 being 50, he didn't just deal with it in the shadows, he turned the whole situation into art, putting the drama, the danger, and the names themselves, Supreme and Jimmy Henchman, straight into his music. 50 made sure the whole world got the message loud and clear on his War Angel LP. Every lyric was a warning shot, a reminder of where he stood and what he'd survived. He wasn't hiding, he wasn't backing down, he was owning his story. But in the end, karma caught up with Jimmy Henchman in the harshest way possible. After years of street power moves, backdoor deals, and dangerous plays, the law finally came crashing down on him. He got hit with a laundry list of heavy charges: drug trafficking, money laundering, witness tampering, and even murder for hire tied to Lodi Mack's death. The streets might move fast, but justice moves quiet. And when it showed up, it was game over. On November 29, 2017, Jimmy Henchman's empire officially collapsed. He was convicted and handed not one, but 2 life sentences, sealing his fate once and for all. From calling shots in the industry to spending forever behind bars, it was a brutal fall from power. Meanwhile, 50 Cent came out of it all untouched, stronger, smarter, and more unstoppable than ever. While his enemies ended up either locked up or wiped out, he kept building his legacy brick by brick. He turned his street hustle into a global empire, stacking achievements like trophies. Over 30 million albums sold, a Grammy, an Emmy, and shelves packed with Billboard, BET, American Music, and World Music Awards. 50 didn't just survive the streets, he conquered them. From taking 9 bullets to taking over the entire rap game, his story isn't just wild. It's straight up legendary. And if you're rocking with this story, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. Show some love and keep the real stories of hip hop alive.